how can we be solid at the back, but I want options up top. I want to be able to attack teams in different ways. I like the idea of the back three because it gives you so many options.
All right, Mauro, we have the tactics board out, talking some tactics. First off, I want to talk about being a thief, stealing from other coaches' ideas. What were some coaching ideas that you've looked at over the years, being a fan of Benfica, playing in Portugal? Has there been different styles that you've looked at that have shaped your coaching style?
Yeah, I think obviously, playing the game as well had a big role in how I see it, and how I thought or I think it should be played. I'm very forward-minded, I'm very attacking-minded, and my idea was always, how can we be solid at the back, but I want options up top. I want to be able to attack teams in different ways. Me growing up, it was very rare to see teams in the back three. But as football evolved, as young coaches got their opportunity, as more coaches got different opportunities, different looks, we were able to see a lot of teams play in the back three, and that's something that I like to do. I'm not saying extremely passionate about it. That's something I believe in a lot because it can give you different pictures on the attacking aspect. So if I have to talk about some teams that kind of caught my eye playing in the back three, I would say Antonio Conte is a coach that has played in that back three for some time now. Obviously, his Chelsea with David Luiz out in the back there, it was something that I enjoyed a lot. His 3-4-3, his 3-5-2, same situation with Inter was also a team that I enjoyed seeing, and most recently. Ruben Amorim in his Sporting days. I'm not going to say Man U days, but I'll say his Sporting days, even though I still think he did a great job at Man U, and time was putting him in a good place. But anyways, yeah, I like the idea of the back three because it gives you so many options on how you can unshape your team or shape your team going forward. So I would say those three teams in particular, Conte's Chelsea, Conte's Inter, and Ruben Amorim's Sporting, are three teams that have given me a lot of ideas with the back three.
Now, looking at the board, you like the 3-4-3 setup. When you're attacking, how do you like your players to move? How are you kind of advancing the ball? What are the things that you're wanting to see from your team?
Well, the biggest thing for me is obviously, and I'm gonna shift this team just a little bit higher on the pitch, just to kind of give us here an idea of how I'd like to, expose teams, I'd call it. Obviously, the center forward being able to pin down strikers. You have these two, what I like to call them at times, the pocket tens, that show, I wouldn't say show, but they kind of lock down players. Who comes and defends this guy is always my question. Is it the fullback? And if it's the fullback, then, we have our wing back by himself. If he opens up, then that means there's a lot of pockets for him to kind of be able here to play, to go in behind, to receive the ball, where then, he's stretching out a center back, and then it's a kind of a 2v1 situation here. So I like to put, a lot of the times five players in higher positions against normally a back four, and if it's a back five, then it's a 5v5, and I'm extremely comfortable with that situation. And then obviously here we always have our formation of the three center backs with the two midfielders, and then from this, you can create a box and overload on one side. You can keep the back three, and then put one more up there and create an overload in the center picture. So again, always options and how can we overload, how can we find a free man, and how can we expose teams.
And then in possession, when you're transitioning from the defensive to being offensive, are you somebody who likes to play out of the back? Are you somebody who likes to send the long balls in? Are you playing through the middle, or are you staying kind of wide, playing it in?
I always play what teams give me. I think that's the biggest and the best thing of teaching the game and how to teach the game, because if you go always long, after three long balls, the other team's going to just back down, and then you're stuck. Yeah. If you always go out wide, they're going to press you and find traps out wide, and then you're stuck. I think that the biggest thing, and in this formation in particular, if I want to play down the middle, I got 5 players here that I can do small combinations with. If I want to go out wide, I can overload and have 5 to 6 players out wide in these positions to be able to outnumber them. So I'm a big believer that yes, we have to have our style of play. Yes, we have to have one way that kind of you're most comfortable in, but you need to be able to understand what the game has given you. So I always like to have in my mind when I'm teaching the game, because at the end of the day, that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching the players on what I want them to do, on how I want them to be successful, and it's the biggest key is for me is when and why. And that's a question I ask my staff on a daily basis is, okay, when can we do this and why should we be doing this? So when players start to understand that when and why, I think things are much easier, and they're able to see those different pictures, when to go long, when to go in between lines, when to go out to in to out. So I don't really have one way. I like to think I have multiple ways on how to expose teams.
Are there different markers that you're looking for, you're communicating with your players to recognize those things, to make those decisions, to say, if they're doing this, I want you to go long. If you're doing this, I want you to.
Yeah, I think the biggest two is obviously how they press. For example, if we're in our back three, and they press us this way, then okay, how can we get the ball out wide and get players in different positions to be able to out possess them? If for some reason they're pressing us out to in, okay, then how can we get into the position where we can play inside? So the press is definitely one thing. Sometimes you need to beat the press, but other times you can go with the press and then create overloads to switch the point of attack. And then distances. I think when teams are compact, it's harder to beat them in between lines. So at that point, either you go around or you go over. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing is how are they pressing, and then the distance between every line will also dictate how we want to play.
And out of possession, how are you guys structuring when you're defending against the other team?
We'd like to be a high tempo team, being in understanding, okay, how can we press and where can we press? So I think it's something very natural that on goal kicks we try to go on a man-v-man situation. And why I say this is because obviously we're very comfortable with our back line winning duels and winning second balls. When you go into that mid block, I'm someone that I have my Mourinho background, my Portuguese background that tells me if you're compact, if you're organized, if you set traps in certain areas, you'll be able to win the ball more often. And then obviously when we're in a situation that we're low block, it's more of an emergency. I think it's about mindset. I think it's about sacrifice. I think it's about having character to be able to just defend for your life. At that point, you're defending in your box. I think you just got to put your body on the line and not concede. Yeah. So again, on the higher up on the pitch, a little bit more higher tempo. In a mid block, I like to have our lines nice and organized and set traps in certain areas to be able to win the ball. And then obviously when they're closer to our goal, more of a emergency type of mindset.
Now, do you have any things that are, would you say, within your tactics that are non-negotiables? And then do you have things that are, that you're like, I'm still working on, I'm still tinkering with, haven't settled on the right idea yet?
No, I think we're quite set on how we want to play. I think we did something in particular this year is that we know our style of play, and we brought players that fit that style of play. We didn't go and get players and then we had to change our style of play. I think we have our way of playing. We brought in good players that fit this way of playing. And the non-negotiable for me, I think it's one that brings a lot of things, and it's to compete.
Yeah.
I think if we don't show up, we shouldn't be in a game. I think by being competitive, you got to press hard. You got to go into those 50-50s. You got to, anything in front of goal, you got to go and score. You got to go and close. If there's a cross on the right side, you got to go and close the left side. So for me, there's a lot of non-negotiables, but the main one, because it gathers everything, is to compete. Like I said before, I don't take no for an answer. I don't, battles are only done when they're done. So we got to show up from minute 1 to minute 90.
Now, obviously, you talked about a little bit about like you picking the players now to fit this system. What would you say are the kind of traits that you're looking for the midfielders, for the centered forward? What are the things that you're saying as we're looking for the players to bring in? This is what I want them to look like. These are the skills that I want them to have.
I want, obviously, and this is a job in particular that I've done in collective with this project, and obviously the senior management is we have a club goal, we have a club project, and then obviously that team has to kind of get benefit, or the club has to get benefits on how the team is playing. So the biggest thing for me and what I believe in, and obviously being I don't like to use the word a lot, but still a young coach. Is we want to give players an opportunity. We want players that are in an age that they're excited about the game, that they're energetic, because the way I play is an energetic type of way. We go forward, we run forward. We have to have a lot of physical attributes that suit the way we play. We're a team that we don't back down for 50-50s, for example. So the players, all of them, have to be physically ready for the demands that I want to see and we want to see the team play. Another thing that we want to see and we have this year is players that are comfortable with the ball. I think obviously you can't defend for 90 minutes, you can't attack for 90 minutes, but if you have the ball and you're comfortable with that at your feet, I think you put yourself in a position where you have the ball more than you don't. So that's something that we scouted and brought in a lot of players this year. That are very comfortable with the ball. It doesn't matter where on the field, but they're comfortable with the ball. So being athletic is one, being comfortable on the ball is the second. And a big thing for me is the mindset. I mean, and when I say the mindset, I'm not always looking for winners. I'm not always looking for going on to their transfer market, let's say, and say, okay, this guy has this title, this title, this title. I think a lot of the times we don't understand how hard it is to win a title. I think, you look at any league in the world, 20 teams in the league, there's only one that wins it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of players that in their life have been part of fantastic teams, have been part of winning a lot of games in teams, but never won a title.
Yeah.
So I like to have winners on the team, and winners by that, and that's why I like to know the human side. I want winners. I want people that don't take no for an answer. I want people that are extremely competitive. So, those would be one, obviously being athletic, being young. We want to be in an energetic team. Number two, being comfortable on the ball, because again, I think that gives us the way we play, how many players we put forward, puts us in opportunities and positions to win more games. And then obviously the third one is being extremely competitive, having that winner mentality.
Yeah. And then talking about, you're involved with the Youth Academy here, the pathway for Inter Toronto. Looking at the young players you're bringing in, obviously then there's a whole host of different young players that you've got Shola playing for the team, who's I think 17 now.
Yeah.
What's some advice that you have? What are the things that you're like, if you're a young player developing in Ontario and Canada, these are things that you should be focusing on. These are the ideas, these are the tactics, these are the formations that you should be getting to know.
I think the number one thing is playing. This is, again, this goes, and this is why I think my time at Calgary Foothills was so important, was because an average kid in Europe, the amount of time he actually gets to play his sport, soccer, the amount of hours he spends on a weekly basis, the amount of hours he spends maybe even on a daily basis, it's so much bigger than a kid out here in North America. It's not the kid's fault, it's not the parents' fault, it's just the reality that we don't have the infrastructures. We don't have the climate of kids to be playing outdoors during the 12 months. So the one thing, and parents are going to hate me for this, is get a ball, get a wall, and just train. And just train and just train. And there's only so much you can train with the ball and the wall. But the reality is you need touches on the ball. You need to be passionate. You need to test yourself. You need to be creative. And that's something that would be the number one thing that I would ask for players, is be comfortable with the ball, making sure that ball is always with you. It doesn't matter if it's at a school gym. It doesn't matter if it's in your your parents' bedroom, doesn't matter if it's actually on the field. Be passionate about the sport and always have that ball, at your feet, I think would be number one. And then the second one is be passionate about how hard it is to become a pro. And why I say this is because a lot of the times, and again, it's more of a culture thing, kids at 16, 17, 18, here they're ready to go to college, they're ready to take on what they want to do in the future. And the reality is at 16, 17, 18, you still have 12, 13, 14 years that you can play pro. So not taking that easy way out, I think is something that we have to be more realistic about. I think obviously, if you've been playing youth soccer for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and then all of a sudden you go into a professional academy just like into Toronto, and if you're there for a year, you can't expect to go make millions and all of a sudden become a pro. I think that struggle of, just like I have a bunch of players now coming up to the first team for a week and then going back to the championship or to the U20s or whatever it is, having to struggle between, coming up and feeling the best in the world and going back down and not being as motivated. I think find joy in that struggle, because being a professional is extremely hard. Professional in any sport. Obviously, I think the average length of a professional career in North America is about 2 years, 3 years. And, I have guys in the locker room today that have been pros for 10 years. So it is extremely, extremely difficult to be a professional. And kids need to understand that. Young players need to understand how hard it is. It's not going to be given to you just like that. And, they're in a situation right now here at Inter Toronto that a lot of kids that are not part of professional academies want to take their space, want to take their shot. So, I think find joy in the struggles, and then obviously be passionate about it, because if it's something that you really want, then you shouldn't take no for an answer.
All right. Well, this has been great. Mauro, good luck this season.
Appreciate it.
Looking forward to see the 3-4-3 system.
Perfect. Thank
on
you.
the pitch.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Fantastic. Thanks, gents.